Well, ballots being cast with voters answering yes or no to referendum questions. One of those on the 2020 general election ballot for Peoria County centered around the future of the Heddington Oaks property. It's a nursing home which recently permanently closed its doors. So here to give insight on this question and what that yes or no means is County Administrator Scott Sorrell. Scott, thank you so much for being here this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Well, before we jump into actual questions, let's go ahead and take a look at the exact reading that we have for this question. It says, quote, Peoria County has ended its operation of Heddington Oaks, the county-owned skilled nursing facility. Shall the county of Peoria be permitted to sell or dispose of the land and buildings known as Heddington Oaks? So let's talk about state statute, right? I mean, which is why there must be voter consent. Is that correct?
Correct. So at various points in the past, we've asked the voters to either build a nursing home, and that was Bellwood Nursing Home back in the 60s, or to levy a property tax to help pay for its operations or pay for debt. And we did that once in the 70s and once again in the 90s. And because we did that, we have to ask the voters to be able to get permission to sell or dispose of the property.
And so why does the board want to sell or dispose of the Heddington Oaks property?
Well, it's a purpose-built facility for skilled nursing care, or what we call a nursing home, and or assisted living. And those are businesses that Peoria County government is no longer in. We showed that we didn't need to be in that business based on the fact of how quickly all of our residents safely relocated voluntarily to other nursing home facilities in our community and the region when we announced our closure earlier this spring.
So Scott, the real question too, is for voters, right? So they have the option of saying yes or no on this ballot question. So if they were to vote and say their answer is yes, what is the outcome if that's what they choose?
So if the voters choose to say yes, that gives the county board the ability and the authority under the state law to actually then market the property and try and sell it for a useful purpose. If the voters say no, the voters, that means that we don't have permission to do that.
Sure. And
the county board at this point has said that we will continue to put this question on the ballot and do more education to the voters until we do have a successful outcome.
Gotcha. So that was going to be my next question, was the flip side of that coin. So for repurposing, right, we've talked about how we're not in the industry of that right now. So is repurposing not an option?
Well, for us, it really isn't because of how the building was constructed and what it was constructed for. It's not really set up to be used as, say, a dormitory or an office building. It's really set up to be used as a nursing home or assisted living center. And those are just two things that we're not delivering services anymore.
And who would be the property, or who would the property be sold to if the voters do majority say yes to this ballot question?
So at this point, that's way too early for us and premature to answer. We haven't started to market the property yet. We won't do that until the voters give us approval, if they do. Ideally, it's going to be someone who can repurpose the building for assisted living or for a nursing home or something along those lines.
So one last question for you, Scott, before we let you go here. Is there anything that you think we should talk about this referendum question that you think would help voters with their decision-making process?
So I think the key point from the county board's perspective is that we have a very high-quality building that we no longer have a use for. It's really purpose-built, and we want to find a way to ensure that that doesn't become a long-term liability and burden for the county and for the taxpayers of Peoria County. The only way to really absolve that burden going forward is to dispose of the property and find a buyer for it.
All right, Scott Sorrell, thank you so much for being here on CI News. Today we appreciate your insight on this referendum question.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful.